It's Time Football is back for episode 9. This week we've decided to kind of just go for a general topic. And I think Gabe really likes talking about this because it kind of brings a lot of arguments and a lot of different perspectives. And so this week we've decided to go for hot takes.
Probably
Hot,
fine given the Man United hot take I did for last episode.
oh Jesus, yeah. I mean,
I think they are the worst coach team in the Premier League. And I genuinely mean that, and it's a hot take, but
that's a statement.
I tell you why? I think there's of course matters that are worse than Ten Hag, of course, in the Premier League. I do
Yeah.
think that in a way, of course. The reason I say the worst coach is because at least
Well, we won't come back. We won't come back to that. That's done. Was there now today. We have a few more hot takes to bring up, which are obviously I think we're gonna stick to the Premier League. And so Is It Time Football is going to get into it with very numerous topics probably today
yeah,
because we actually have not discussed beforehand any of our choices. None.
yeah.
So this is going to be surprising, maybe. This might be heated at some points
You'll get a lot
for
of
all
different
we know.
reactions from us. We literally do not know what kind of hot takes we have in store for each
I
other.
mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't lie to our viewers. This was a very last minute decision. But we feel it's a good one. So we're ready to go with some hot takes about the
Agreed.
footballing world, about the Premier League. So the way this is going to work is three hot takes each, back and forth, punches to punches, and we'll see what we can get out of it and see if we end this episode with a sane mindset.
Let's get into it. I'm pumped.
So to get into it first, I did. I will start because we did talk about a similar topic before filming, which is the Ballon d'Or. And so my first hot take, I told Gabe we talked about the Musiala Bellingham comparisons, both saying very different perspectives with that one already. And then Gabe brought up the idea that Florian Wirtz would be in contention for the Ballon d'Or, which I agree with.
Hmm.
But I solely believe that the Ballon d'Or this year, so far, belongs to one man and one man only. And Gabe might hate me for this, and he might make fun of me for this because I hate this team. I can't stand this team.
Right.
But it's a Man City player,
Mm-hmm.
and that player is Phil Foden.
Oh wow, that is very interesting.
This is my hot take number one. Phil Foden should get the Ballon d'Or.
I mean, go, elaborate first, and I'll give my reaction.
What is your initial reaction to that game?
I get the reasoning because of how Man City on course for a double. England could technically win the Euros. Foden has been Man City's best player this season, so it all makes sense. I think stats-wise, Foden has been one of the best players this year in the Prem. The reason I don't think it's going to happen is because I don't think England wins the Euros. So that's my thing about it.
Yeah, but this is the thing. This is the thing. The way I see it this year is none of the contenders for the Ballon d'Or. If you're thinking of contenders, you're thinking Jude, who's obviously on England as well,
Right.
Musiala, who's on Germany, Wirtz, who's on Germany. Uh,
Mbappe.
you you could bring up Mbappe, obviously. So Mbappe could most likely be the front runner.
Right.
Most likely, people will expect Mbappe to win this year, but people are also bringing up Jude. I find that individually speaking, the top three are Jude, Foden, and Mbappe. But looking at the season in general, obviously Mbappe's absolutely run over the Ligue 1
Yes.
and he's dominating the Champions League as well. But I find that France might struggle at the Euros.
So I think a lot of this take is going to boil down to like how well you think the country does in the Euros. That's I think what.
Yes, that's exactly what it boils down to, actually. This is exactly what it boils down to. And again, you're going to laugh at me for this because I hate England as well. But I do think England have what it takes this time to win the Euros if they obviously don't get hindered by Gareth Southgate.
But that's the thing. I think they will. I get your point. I think on paper they
I
will.
know, I know. But looking to bring back the topic of Phil Foden,
Yes.
like this dude has had a monster of a season. I think he's had 3 hat tricks as a 10 or winger, never as a striker. And he's contributed so much to this team in both the assists, in both the goals, and in both also the buildup of the play and the dribbling. He's kind of been able to free flow all of a sudden. I feel that Kevin De Bruyne missing out on the first half of the season played a big part of that. And now we can see the combination of the two is almost deadly. So, the loss to Real Madrid wasn't a good example of what I'm saying. But if you look at every single other game since Kevin De Bruyne and Foden have been partnered up together, it's almost been inevitable that they will score or assist at some point or contribute at some point. So I feel if Kevin De Bruyne would have played the whole season, he would be in contention, but he hasn't.
Right.
So and he's with Belgium, which I find I don't think they're
No,
in the mix, if I'm being honest.
I agree.
So for me, this Ballon d'Or goes between Mbappe, Foden, and Jude. And if I'm being honest, I don't find that Jude, in terms of his all around play, has impacted Real Madrid's game as much as Foden has impacted Man City's this season.
That I'll agree. I do agree with that part. I think Foden's been more impactful for Man City than Jude has been for Real Madrid. I'll agree with that.
So that's just my opinion. I think Jude's had an absolutely stellar season, and Mbappe's right now has probably had the best season out of anybody. But then you have to take into account that it's Ligue 1 versus the Prem.
Right.
It depending on who you're talking to, they'll think otherwise. But I just find that England this tournament have what it takes to win. I never thought I would have heard myself say that, but that is my thought. And so if say England does win,
Right.
and then Man City next season will go on a probably a tear at some point, and so the form is still there to be had. Whereas Mbappe, with all the news and all the any possibility of him moving away, he might miss out on a few of the first games of the season already at that point.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen with him. So I just feel like Foden has a more stable line to that Ballon d'Or than the other players that I've mentioned have.
I do, but I would also give one more caveat. I don't deny, by the way, Foden has been more probably towards their team one of the most impactful players towards their specific team compared to a lot of the other players.
He's been the most impactful player on his team this season.
Of course,
I find
for Man City, of course. I think my only thing is though, if you look at how Ballon d'Ors normally are given, they tend to be given to team like to players whose team has won the Champions League, and I think
not always.
Not always, but I think in this scenario, because if we look at the past precedents for Ballon d'Ors, right, it normally tends to be the Messi Ronaldo combo. But if you look, 2022, it was Benzema, large part because of their Champions League. I guess my point is, just my view about it is this. I think when I look at it, a lot of it depends on the Euros, and I don't have the confidence in Southgate to carry England to win a Euros. That's one thing. The second thing is this. I think Jude whilst I don't think he has had as great as a season as Foden has had, and I completely agree on that, just the way that the Ballon d'Or is going to be given, I think if Real Madrid wins the Champions League, that's going to be more powerful. Real Madrid winning the league title and the Champions League compared to Man City who wins the league title and the cup. So my view is I think that makes a big difference. So I think player-wise and ability-wise and in terms of season-wise individually, Foden's had a better season than Jude. But I feel like the Ballon d'Or will skew towards who wins Champions League and also Euros. And I just don't have the most confidence in Southgate, to be fair, as well.
No, it's a bold statement. I just think like for once that I like an English player, I've had to give my. Oh, obviously I love Harry Kane,
right?
But like I mean, or more precisely, I like an England player and a Man City player, both in one. You know. Obviously Kevin De Bruyne as well, but of those two factors, I have to give my flowers to Foden on this hot take.
Definitely.
So
no, he's been accepted.
So that's my hot take. I hope I've argued it well. My first hot take. I think it's time to move on and hear what you have to say.
Well, so first, I think that was a good hot take. I don't think, to be fair, of course, it is a little bit controversial, but I don't think it's like something so out the unheard of. So I did appreciate it.
It brings up a lot of discussion.
Definitely.
I think.
Mine as well. So my hot take. So a lot of Premier League signings in the season are being debated, talked about for signings this season. Cole Palmer, with the South season he's having. You have Declan Rice, even though of course the price is very expensive, but he's had a sensational season with Arsenal.
I think he's made up for it, if I'm being honest.
That's fair. I think he's made up for the price. Like I'm not saying I don't think it was it's worth the price, so to speak. I think that.
Yeah.
But my hot take is I think the Premier League signing of the season this year, taking into account everything, including the money spent and most value for money, is Vicario for Spurs. That is my hot take. I think he's.
I thought you were going to say Mickey Van de Ven.
I love Mickey Van de Ven, but I think Vicario. The problem is Van de Ven's been injured for a lot of it.
Yeah, that's the one issue. But as you were saying that, I was like, it's got to be Van de Ven. But then I was like, he was out for the majority of the season. So,
yeah. So but I think Vicario. When you look at teams depending on individual players, Spurs depend so much on Vicario because of their highline tactics and how vulnerable they are defensively. Right. When you look at Vicario, every game I watched of Spurs this year, and you look at it on the highlights, you can tell. Every game Spurs plays, Vicario makes one quality save every game. Just every game makes quality saves. If you look at stats-wise, he's tied for 5th in the league for post-shot expected goals minus goals allowed or goals conceded. And what that means basically is that he's overperformed how many expected goals he was expected to concede. Basically, it means when you look at the stats, he's prevented 4 clear goals that should have been scored, which is an amazing stat. Tied 5th in the league for that with Areola, who's also had a great season, by the way, for West Ham. But anyway, when you look at price-wise, Vicario's only been marked for 20 million euros, 17 million pounds. It's goalkeepers, of course, are cheaper, but that's a bargain, I think, for someone who's been that essential to the Spurs team. Because so much of the highlight depends on Vicario being a sweeper and making crucial saves. And many, many big games this season, Vicario's made massive, massive, massive saves. So Cole Palmer, of course, there's been a lot of dependency on Chelsea for Cole Palmer. He's literally even given them a chance of Europe this year because of him, I agree. But Palmer, if you look at game by game, it's not per se that Chelsea depend on him on every single game. And I think not every single game. Well, let's look at it, right? Sheffield tied away. When you look at,
can you say that Tottenham rely on Vicario every single game?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Every time they need Vicario to make at least one quality save. Every time. Because Spurs consistently are vulnerable defensively. I think I want to talk about Palmer. Sensational. He's an extremely consistent season, stellar season. But if I'm being nitpicky, it's not every single game Chelsea have purely depended on. I think Spurs cannot get results without Vicario. I truly believe that. Van de Ven's a quality defender, but I think the rest of the defenders are not at that same level. And I think also just defensively, they're very vulnerable. So I think personally, given the value for money and the dependency on Vicario and how he's been, in my opinion, you could argue goalkeeper of the season in the Prem potentially. Potentially. I'm not saying he is, but potentially.
Potential. No, there is
Potentially.
potential for that. I
Potentially.
can agree.
I think he's been signing of the season. I really do. I
Mhm.
price wise has really sold me on that, especially. So
Okay.
that's my take.
Okay. I can see it. I'm I'm still I'm still hesitant to agree because of Cole Palmer. Um, but for me, he's the second best signing at this point with your arguments in terms of the price, in terms of what he's brought, also in terms of the unexpectancy of it,
Right.
which
Like this level.
yes, which is why I find Cole Palmer also had that. Like people expected him to be, a rotational player or maybe starting every so often a game.
Right.
Nobody thought he'd be the main man.
Definitely not.
Let's
I
be
agree.
honest.
I
Let's
agree.
be honest. So
Completely.
I think that adds to the value of a signing, always, for
I
sure.
completely agree. Look, Palmer for me is second best signing of the season because I agree with the
Mhm.
unexpected factor. Who would have thought A that he would have this good of a season would be there would be this much dependency on him this season. It's
Yeah,
great. So I completely agree. I
yeah.
told car. I think the pricing factors into it just a little bit more for me because he's literally like
Hmm.
less than half the price of Paul Palmer. I think it's
Yeah,
quite impressive.
yeah.
And I think
Okay.
Palmer also is looking like a bargain for like 50 million, given how insane he's been this year. But yeah,
Hmm. 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 Yeah, if he was nowhere near to the level he's been, he would be, somewhere be like good signing. I'm talking about Palmer.
yeah,
Good signing, contributes well. If he'd have half the numbers he has
agreed.
or half the impact he does.
Mhm.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Okay. That's it seemed like a hot take at the beginning, but I think you argued it pretty well, if I'm
Yes,
being honest.
let's go.
I have to agree. I still don't think he's the best. I still think Palmer is the best. I think Declan Rice is a close third. For me, the thing that turns me off is the money and
Yeah,
the expectancy of it. Like you better be that good for
yeah,
that much money.
I agree.
Um, so yeah, okay, fair enough. That's a good argument.
Appreciate it.
Well, now to keep the ball rolling, I want to move away from players and I want to talk specifically about a manager, actually.
Interesting.
And it might not be who you're expecting either, because, you know, in football, you sometimes label people. And a very famous label is overrated or underrated.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I've chosen to go for the prior, which is overrated.
Okay.
And I am going to argue that because I remember when I was visiting family a month ago, we were watching a lot of Prem together, and we watched a lot of games of this specific team.
I hope it's
And
not more.
it was at the point where Liverpool was looking at different managers. Now they've obviously gone for Arne Slot,
Mhm.
but at this point they were looking for numerous managers still. And this is when Roberto De Zerbi of
I knew
Brighton
you
came.
would say this.
And when that news came out that they were thinking of Roberto De Zerbi, I remember telling my uncle, I'm like, I don't particularly understand that because yes, Brighton had a very good season last season, but I think in majority they ended up where they ended up because of how good their defense was last season.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
had 12 clean sheets in the Prem, which is pretty damn good for a higher mid-table team. And they had very good offense, which was free flowing. But what I don't like about the Zerbi is it's all or nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was showcased perfectly. Who did Brighton play in the game where they got thrashed the other week?
Well, there was Bournemouth they just got thrashed by. My Bournemouth boys just
Yes, but the one before that,
Man City, and then also
was it? I think it was City. Yeah, that's because I watched that game. the Zerbi obviously identifies himself as a man who likes to build out of the back, who's not afraid to build out of the back against good teams.
Right.
And again, I don't know if you remember when we talked about the sides that were getting relegated and how I brought up that Company is a bit too stubborn with his tactics.
Right.
And I find that the Zerbi is the same way, especially this season.
I agree.
And they've conceded a lot of goals. And mainly, as I was referring to the defense, is because they've had a lot of changes in that defense.
Mm-hmm.
They've switched out, I think, 3 of the 5 at the back, including the keeper. So it's a whole new mood. It's a whole new combination that isn't working as well as last season. And so that's my issue with the Zerbi is he, you know, he took over from Graham Potter, and Graham Potter did a very decent job of bringing it up,
Mm-hmm.
but he hasn't been able to find that solid defensive ability in this Brighton team since being in a driver's seat.
Right.
And that's problematic, if I'm being honest. Because if you have a team that's going to high press you, which is exactly what City did, which is exactly what Bournemouth did,
Mm-hmm.
they end up losing 4-0 and 3-0.
Correct.
So this is why I'm saying I find Roberto De Zerbi overrated, because he's very one-dimensional.
I might shock you.
So what? Please say what you have to say.
I might shock you, but I agree with you. I actually do. I think.
Thank you. Somebody agrees with me. Everybody's ripping into Arne Slot for no reason. But be like, oh, De Zerbi would have been better. De Zerbi would not have been better.
So let me explain to you why I agree with you. I think, and look, I got a sense of, especially in the, I watched the City game, but especially, of course, I watched the Bournemouth game, and how my Bournemouth boys, Iraola ball. By the way, Iraola, one of the most underrated managers, I think.
Oh, for sure. I agree. Underrated as hell.
He's doing fantastic with us. I love it. Best season ever, but enough Bournemouth praise I can do all day. Anyway, about the game against Brighton, I think we got a sneak peek about that. That was kind of an epitomization of the problem I have with De Zerbi, where even offensively they weren't too bad, because I saw a lot of creation and forward-thinking play through like Juan Pedro and Bonanote. And
I don't see that much of it. I don't see that enough of it for me to compliment it.
Well, I think
So
I thought it was underwhelming against us, yes, and against Man City as well. But I actually see. This is my thing. I see. Look, with De Zerbi, you can tell what the tactical side is compared to Ten Hag. At least he has a tactical, there's a clear identity to this team tactically. I think offensively they're underwhelming, yes. But I still see what they're going for, and I think also in the game against us, if there was more confidence from Bonanotte and a bit more from Juan Pedro, could have done better. The main issue I think why I agree with you he's overrated is because the defensive structure is chaotic. There's none.
It's chaotic. It's chaos.
Absolutely chaotic. And I saw it so many times against us where they push their fullback so far up, but they don't drag back their center backs sufficiently. So it'll always be one-on-ones from Kluivert getting in behind, right? So many times. I just think, I completely agree with you. I think De Zerbi last season did very well to overachieve this Brighton team, but the main difference is just the defensive structure of this Brighton team this season has just collapsed. I especially
yeah.
Do you know what's a big game that showed that to me? Do you remember when they lost 4-0 to Luton? Did you watch that game?
Obviously.
In the first
Obviously,
game,
yes.
they were 2-0 down. So, great win by Luton, by the way. But anyway, so
obviously
forward, right? And I think I completely agree with you about De Zerbi. I think this season they've been a little bit underwhelming offensively, but it's not been tragic. The thing that's been horrible that needs to be real questions asked about him is the defensive structure, because they're so far pushed up high and there's no bounce, and it's such a risky play. I agree, it's very one-dimensional, and it risks, again, against high-pressing teams. I literally had predicted the day of, I thought we would beat Brighton because we do high pressing, and Man City does as well, and we thrived on it, both of these teams. It doesn't work against, and if you look also, and this is a key thing if you look at Brighton, I think this is another thing, because I completely agree with you about this, De Zerbi. The first 6 games of the season, they had 5 wins from their first 6 games. Have you seen their form afterwards?
No, I haven't seen it since. No,
They've
what
had
was it?
so they had 5 wins in their first 6 games. They've had
Yes.
6 wins then from their next. I'm trying to think how many games it's been. Like 25 games, I want to say, like 26, like
Well, bro,
28 games.
in the last 4 games in the Prem, they've
Yeah.
scored 1 goal and they've conceded 11.
Don't forget also the goal they scored was the own goal from Juric, if you remember that one.
Also, oh God, yes. I
So,
mean, that's
so
this is what I mean. This is what I mean.
I,
Is like I don't.
I agree. Look, that I want to be clear. I don't think that means De Zerbi should be sacked. Because I think
No, no, no.
but I think he's very overrated. I think this Brighton level suits him. I do think it does. Um, Look, I think he's lost the credibility that he gained from last season. Because I
Yeah,
agree,
for
defensive,
sure.
even I could forgive offensive, even though offensively they've been underwhelming at times. The defensive structure has been all over the place. They didn't get their first clean sheet of the season until like December, and they've had very
Yeah,
few clean sheets off this. It's chaotic. So look, hot take.
and for
Yes, I agree completely.
yeah, and for me, the worst part is, as I said, the stubbornness of this
Yeah,
team to
I
continue even when you're 3-0 down against a high press to play into your sixes.
I
They
agree.
play into Baleba and Moder with their backs turned from the field when they already have, I guess, 6 or 7 offensive players in their half of the field of the other team.
Right.
So the City game summed it up perfectly. Is despite after the second goal, which was another chaotic one, to still be playing that ball at high speed with
I
the
agree.
six, his back turned from the game, and a press and players of the other team around him. They kept playing it. And it was always ending up in a counterattack.
I agree. So look,
So
I
so
completely.
that summed it up for me. I'm like, how is this like acceptable to keep trying this method that has proven to be terrible?
A final point of his stubbornness, which I really dislike, is that he continuously rotates the goalkeepers. He always rotates between
Yes,
Logan and Steve.
always rotating
I hate when
as
I hate
well.
when a manager does that. It's so ridiculous. Like, no, you need a main number one. And then of course when main
Yes.
number one is like in bad form, then change him out. Urala did that recently actually with Neto. He took out Neto for Travers, and Travers has been really good. That I have no issue with. But you cannot continuously rotate your 2 goalkeepers.
No, no, it's not. It's just not. It brings no stability.
No, it doesn't. So no,
None.
yeah, I think again, I'm not advocating for De Zerbi out. I think he suits well for Brighton. I do think that they'll do better next season under him. But
Mhm.
I agree, he's lost a lot of the credibility he had last year, and I think he's overrated. So I actually agree with your hot take, candidly.
Let's go. I brought up a good one there. But yeah, a lot to say for that one. But let's move on.
That's
I could go on for days about this one.
well,
But please let me hear your second hot take.
it's related to managers as well.
Oh, well, there we go.
Indeed. And I guess similar vein to overrated, but I think this is one that's very controversial, not within this team's fan base, but within the media. All the time when I look at talk sport in the media, and from many football commentators, I see a lot of emphasis from people being like, why are X fans complaining about this manager? He's done so great for them. And I actually agree with these fans that I think by the end of the season, he should actually leave this club. And I want to see if you guess what I'm saying. It's a team where the fans are very much in turmoil about him, but the media praises him. It's David Moyes. So my hot take is David Moyes.
I was thinking I was thinking lower in the table for a second. But that actually kind of makes sense.
So let me explain what I mean. So
Okay.
I see so much in the media, and I really hate this because it's a very lazy thing to say, I think, candidly. And I'll explain why, because I'm going to compare to Bournemouth last season, and you'll see why. So a lot of the people in the media and talk sport and stuff say, why are West Ham fans complaining? They won a European trophy. They're in 7th or 8th. They're in 8th right now. They're 7th or 8th. They're fighting for European places. Why are they complaining? So that's what they say, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we say. This is why context matters. And this is why I think it's completely valid for West Ham fans. And I agree with them, actually, that I think David Moyes should leave at the end of the year. There's a thing of the results and there's a thing of performance. And that's the thing that I need to take into account. I'm going to use the example of Gary O'Neill last year for us in Bournemouth.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of last season, Gary O'Neill, I want to give credit to. He did fantastic to keep us up. But when people said he was A-level manager, no, it was B-level for me. And this is what I think is the same thing for Moyes. On the surface level for Bournemouth last year for Gary O'Neill, he did fantastic to keep us up. I'm not going to once roast him. I always have massive respect for him. But if you looked at our play style, so much of it was very underwhelming. Very underwhelming. Mm-hmm. Very little chance creation. Very Jekyll and Hyde performances also. We went from 1 week, I remember
Jekyll and Hyde. Oh my god. Keep going. Sorry, that just got me. We had
1 week beating Spurs 3-2 away. The next week, lost 4-0 at home to West Ham. The next week, beat Southampton. So you see what I mean? This kind of inconsistency. So my view, and I especially saw this from Talk Sport, all these geniuses being like, oh, why have they sacked Gary O'Neill? Why have they brought Iraola? And this is my point with the Moyes thing. Gary O'Neill, I will say, and the same thing with Moyes, does not purely on merit deserve to be sacked. It's not like a Ten Hag out situation where it's like actively bad. Yeah. But my view about it, in the same way I had for Gary O'Neill at the end of last season, the same for Moyes this season for West Ham, is if you can get a clearly better manager, you get him. Because it's the performances levels. On the surface, West Ham being 8, that's actually solid. Might be a little bit disappointing in some ways in terms of how it's petered off, yes. But in some ways, it's solid. But the play style of West Ham is so underwhelming to watch. With the quality of players at their disposal, like Kudus and Paqueta and Bowen, it's so underwhelming to watch. It's very counter-attacking style long balls. And so my view on the Moyes thing is results-wise, maybe he's doing okay. But performances, it's really subpar. So I completely actually understand from West Ham fans that say that they want Moyes at the end of the year. And I agree with them. It's the same way I felt with Gary O'Neill, where it's like, if we can get a clearly better manager, which Andoni Iraola was and is, then it's justified to sack the manager. I completely agree with that with Moyes. So that's my hot.
Okay, I can see that. I'm not specifically sure about the performance v play style issue because, like, I feel like they are still very decent counterattacking. I do have a problem with Mikel Antonio playing so much of the games, if I'm being honest, because I find he doesn't bring much to that team. Jared Bowen should be playing up top and Kudus right under him.
Right.
And so I think that point doesn't particularly convince me. But the point of if you can get a better manager, you get a better manager 100%.
Yeah.
Because West Ham have been trying to make that step to consistent Europa League at least.
Right.
For the last 5 years. And so I just agree that David Moyes, in terms of both the play style and the performance, doesn't bring them there because they're very inconsistent.
Right.
And so I just think somebody who has more, I guess, of a putting a foot down in terms of how West Ham can control a game,
right,
would be somebody who is good.
I completely agree. I think is a final point. I know much of the media, the reason I get annoyed about is because much of the media be like, "Oh, but he brought you a European trophy," to West Ham fans, and
that doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. I agree. And let's not forget last season, West Ham were in a relegation battle in the league.
Yeah,
so all they had as a positive in their season was the Conference League. But let's be candid. Yeah. Does Moyes deserve credit for winning the Conference League? Yes. But also, let's be very candid, apart from the final where they played Fiorentina, every game on the path, player-wise, squad-wise, West Ham was better against all those other teams just in terms of the players that they were playing against in the Conference League. Like they had AZ Alkmaar in the semi-final. And I thought Izzy Akmar were interesting last season, but again, not the same level. That's the point. So, so
Okay, I can see that. That's a fair. I think it's hot take for sure, but it's arguable, definitely arguable, and there are some parts of it that I agree with for sure.
appreciate it.
Um, hmm. Okay. Well, I would stick to this, but you brought up the relegation battle.
Oh, this is your final hot take. Let's see it.
This is part of my final hot take.
Okay.
So, we've done an episode about the relegation battle already. I'm not going to talk about any of those teams.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm actually going to talk about the teams that we talked about on the promotion from championship episode.
Okay. Interesting.
And I believe my hot take is this, that at the end of next season, those three teams will still be in the Prem.
Wow. That's a very hot take.
I believe that obviously there are teams that will get relegated now that deserve to be relegated, aka Burnley and Sheffield, as we've discussed. But there are also teams that are still probably going to stay in the Prem that from this season, unless they have a really good summer and have a really good training camp and go into the season flying, are going to struggle again next season. And if I'm being honest, I don't see Leicester struggling with the team that they've built. I don't see Ipswich struggling with their mentality. And I don't see Leeds struggling with their offensive ability. Maybe their defense, as they were last time in the Prem, but I still think they could pull it off. If they go, this is purely based off of this season's performances.
Right.
If you ask me again, by the end of the summer, depending on the transfers that are brought in or put out, maybe I'll think differently. But right now, I truly believe that every single one of those teams we've discussed, Ipswich, Leeds, Leicester, by the end of the 24-25 season, will be still in the Prem.
I would love for that to be the case, as long as it's not the expense of Bournemouth. I don't think we'd be in relegation battle next year anyway, but still.
No.
Here's my thing. The key trend, if you look at key trends every year, who goes down is the defense. That makes the biggest difference.
I know. This has never happened before, I don't think, where all three teams who are brought up will stay up. I don't think that's happened.
It happened last year. No, it happened last year. Fulham, Bournemouth, and Forest.
True. What am I talking about? Yes, that is true. Well,
but it is rare. It was like the first time in like ages.
It's a rare occurrence.
Yes.
And I do agree that for me, Leeds is the biggest question mark. I do agree with that. I can't deny it. This, like I said, out of all my three takes, this is by far the hottest.
Yes.
By far. But I think it's possible because say this season Luton or Nottingham Forest goes down. Okay? Right. Who's left in the Prem? You have Brentford.
Yeah.
You have either Nottingham Forest or Luton.
Yes.
You have Crystal Palace. You have Fulham. You also have Wolves.
Everton? Or would you not put Everton in the back?
Everton, I think they've shown in the recent performances that they've proved me wrong.
Yes, evidently.
So never mind what I said about them getting relegated. So there are teams that could be on the same level as Leeds that season coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Ipswich is kind of a unknown because they, double promotion in a row. So you don't know if it's too much of a ceiling, if they overperformed. Leicester, I think, have all the tools to stay in the Prem. So
Mm.
yeah, that's my argument. I could go on more, but I feel like you have a lot to say.
I think, look, I would love if it happened. Here's my thing. Again, it's the defensive. If you look at the teams that go down every year, the three teams that go down have like very poor defenses. Last year, right, Southampton, horrible defense because it's basically a championship squad. Then you had Leeds, the worst defense in the Premier League last season. And then you had Leicester, who looked very susceptible to concede like 3 every game.
Yeah.
So that was the trend. And I think, look, last year, Bournemouth didn't have great defense, neither did Forest, neither did Everton in ways, but they just had the other teams had just such exceptionally bad defenses. So I think that's what it boils down to. If I look at it for next season, here's my thing. I think Ipswich could be like Luton, very, very bold offensively, but I do worry for them defensively. They're not the best defensively, but I love them offensively. Leicester, I think Leicester is the safest out of the three because they basically have a Premier League team, and a lot of those players have a Premier League experience already. I think they'll maximize. Leeds have a very good offensive group. They were good defensively this year in the championship until the last couple of games where they got smashed by QPR. That was very interesting. But anyway,
Interesting to say the least.
we literally gave so much praise to Leeds defensively, and then they just I don't know.
I know. All of a sudden, I was gonna say a bad word. They're pooping the bed.
Good cut. I think if I go, look, a lot of things will happen during the summer transfer window. That's going to make a big difference. A lot of teams in the Prem will see how they do. I think if I have to put money on it right now, I think Leicester stays up. Leeds, I do love Daniel Farke, but again, he's never proved in the Prem. I need to see whether he proves in the Prem as well. I know Enzo Maresca neither has, but I think Leicester have too many good Prem players to go down again. Leeds, I don't know. I just a little bit. At Ipswich, my thing is I'm a little bit worried they could be like Luton. In a positive way, they're going to be very gun-ho. They're going to be fantastic offensively, very brave team, but they leave themselves very defensively susceptible.
Mm-hmm.
So
fair point.
So
no, it's a hot take. I agree.
But I think you argued it well. To be fair, I do.
I just wanted to say it so that if it does happen, you know where it is. You know where the evidence is.
So you've claimed it from that year before. I mean, we'll revisit it.
Call me Daniel Sturridge, predicting these things.
Amazing.
Okay. Well, now I think it's time for our final hot take. Please take the floor. So, I hope it's as hot as the one I just put out.
I've been debating between two to say. And maybe I'll say the second one like at the very end, but that will be like a nice one, like a bombshell to drop off at the very end because I think that one. But I'm gonna go for this one because I think I can argue this one better. And this one I much more have faith in. We talk about Premier League Player of the Season.
Yeah.
And there's many players up for grabs. But personally, I think the Player of the Season this year should be, and I stand by this, Ollie Watkins should be the Premier League Player of the Season this season. I fully believe this. Look. So, let me get my reasoning for why.
Okay. So. I was not expecting that. Okay.
No. So let me get my reasoning for why.
What's that?
I truly believe Ollie Watkins.
Wait.
I truly believe this. So, the reason I believe this is because Ollie Watkins has 19 goals this season. He's 2 behind. He's the best assist. He's the most assists in the league. If you look at how Villa plays, he is their best player this year and the one that they most depend on. If you look at game to game, Watkins is such an essential part of their creativity in terms of even when he's not getting goals or assists, their general creativity, they have a clear dependency on him every single game, just in the way that they set up in their play style. He is an amazing playmaker. I would argue probably he's been the most, you know how Kane for many years was an amazing goal scorer, but also playmaker. He's the most Kane-like this year in terms of an amazing clinical striker, but also creating so much. I think what he's done this season for Villa, in terms of the dependency they rely on him, has been more impressive than Foden, in terms of how Man City is dependent on Foden, and then how other teams have. I genuinely believe this. How Man City is dependent, because Man City have also largely dependent on still Rodri, on De Bruyne. I think Villa, so much of it depends on Watkins, and Watkins in himself, without him in the team, has. I don't think Villa would have been close to top 4 without Watkins in the team. I think Man City, you still take out Foden in that team, would still be maybe not as clear-cut title challengers, but would damn well be close. So that's why I think Watkins, for me, should be player of the season for the Premier League. I fully believe it. The stats back it up, the dependency for Villa, how much he's overachieved with this team. I go with him. Your face.
I respect it. I respect it. But as I've said before, Phil Foden is winning Premier League this season. Like, I don't think it's even close.
I think that's one thing I very much debate on.
Watkins is a fair shout. Watkins is a fair shout. But definitely on that Villa team is the best shout. But I could name 3 players on the City team that I think would have a better chance of winning than he does.
In terms of who actually wins it, that's something I agree.
Can we forget Can we not forget Arsenal as well?
I think Arsenal's been much more of a collective team effort as opposed to one individual.
Martin Odegaard.
I don't think he's. I genuinely believe this.
No. He's had an
amazing season.
Amazing season.
And he should be the nominee for Player of the Year. I'm not saying not nominee for Player of the Season. I'm just saying Watkins, the dependency that Villa has on Watkins is much more than what Arsenal has on Odegaard or what Man City has on Foden. Arsenal,
obviously, because they're not as good of a team.
But look at the stats Watkins has done. He's the best assister in the league. He's 2 of the most goals in the league. For this Villa team, that's incredible. It's actually incredible.
Yeah, I mean, no, I see where you're coming from. I just think of too many players before that.
I think the last people I think will actually win it will probably be Foden, assuming City wins the league. I agree. But I think generally merit-wise, I give it to Watkins. Like,
I think merit-wise, Watkins is probably 3rd.
I disagree.
If I'm being honest.
We'll leave it to the comments. I know this has been a very big hot take.
This is a hot take for me. This is a really hot take for me because Watkins, he's very, very good.
Right.
If it wasn't for Kane, he'd be starting lights out for England.
Yes, I agree.
I 100% agree. But I just think that, like, because, like, I just find that he doesn't add too much to the game as Foden, as Odegaard, as you could even say Saka. You could even say Kevin De Bruyne would be one of the front runners if it wasn't for him missing half of the season, as we've said.
I agree.
But yeah, I just don't really like, as much as a great season he's had, he's in the back of my head compared to other players.
But I think he's in the back of your head because he's not for a title challenging team. And I don't think this year.
Obviously not.
Right, but I think unlike last year, where it looked like it was Haaland, I think in the end got it, but it's either Haaland or Odegaard. Right. The difference is I think this year is that Foden has been sensational for Man City. He's been their best player, but I don't think he's been that much of a dependency to the same level as Like, if you're talking about a clear player who's had dependency, Watkins is a much more dependent. Like, Villa has had much more dependency on Watkins than City on Foden. And I think as a final point, just stats-wise, because I do think there's a disparity there in the stats. I want to say again, Watkins, 19 goals in the Prem, second behind, two behind Haaland, and 12 assists. Foden, fantastic season, 16 goals, so similar goal level, but 7 assists. It's like Watkins stats-wise, for a worse Villa team, it's so much more impressive. I really think he deserves it. So, that's why
Okay, fair point. If you look at the stats, then maybe yes. but I believe Phil Foden is so much more than just stats this season.
Agreed.
So yeah, okay, very hot take for me, but again, it's arguable. It's not one of them where I'd be like, nah, get out of here, you know. But I definitely I could see it, but I just don't agree.
That's fine.
But anyways, to end off this episode on hot takes, which is really gotten blood boiling in every single way because of it's very passionate topics. I
Right.
think we can both say that there's a lot of change that might be happening in the Prem over the summer
Definitely.
based off of our hot takes. And with that, we have to see what happens with the new incoming people and whether these hot takes will start to come to fruition
Boom.
or not. And so, to end off the episode on a positive note, we have evidence here that if any of these things happens, we can talk smack to each other. Because say Ollie Watkins does get Player of the Year, you will laugh at my face. I know it.
I definitely will.
Or say I don't know, Deserby gets sacked, or
I agree with
I
you.
don't know,
The one I'll take we both
or
had agreement on.
Phil Foden wins the Ballon d'Or, or
Yes, that
something like that.
yeah, Foden.
It'll be a fun one to look back on. So to end it on the positive note with that, we'd like to say thank you for watching.
Hmm.
Please like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know if you have any hot takes to do with the Premier League.
Yes, please. We want all in the comments below. We'll see how many. Let's see how many like battles and wars we've started in the comments with our hot takes.
We'll
But
see. We shall see. But until next time, thank you guys.
thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys soon.